Hey there. Today I'm going to talk about when you are hiring a software engineer or an engineering lead or someone, how do you ask design questions? First, design questions are important because it's not just about coding, it's about designing both low-level design, high-level design, understanding various implications of decisions, and so on. So this is important for someone with 3+ years experience. For junior engineers, even if they're not good at design, it's okay. So it's not necessary to ask this question. But for senior people, absolutely. And someone who's going to be an architect or an eng lead or eng manager, if they do badly in the design question, I just reject them. Because when they run a project, they won't be able to do a good job if they don't answer the question well. And that will affect the entire team. So the first point, so let's talk about how to ask design questions effectively. The first point is to write down your question ahead of time. Don't frame it on the spot because you may make small mistakes in asking questions if you do it on the spot, which will actually affect the answers the candidate gives. And then if you say, hey, he gave the wrong answer, well, that might just be on your side. So you don't want that complexity. Interviews are hard enough already. Moving on, you should ask a very hard question, the hardest question from your experience, right? The hardest problem you faced in an area that you worked in. And don't ask a hypothetical random question like, I don't know, how do you communicate between Mars and Earth if you're sending a rover to Mars or something like that. I mean, you can ask it if you don't have anything else, but if you have something from your experience, that's always a better grounded question because having been through the journey, you know what is a good question, what are the various aspects to explore, what are the challenges you faced, and so on. I ask a question about FutureCam, my image processing startup. And let me just explain to you what it does. It's for passionate photographers. It's a mobile app. It's not a web app. This website is just a marketing website. And it also has these interactive elements like sliders. So whatever features the app has, you can play with them on the website in a simulated manner without having to download the app. So if you were to download the app and install it and open it and go to this fountain and take a photo using Liquid Shutter, you would get this kind of UI, which is being simulated in the website using the same algorithm. So this is what this is about. Now, if you're, I'll just explain to you a little bit about photography. If you're using an SLR, the shutter speed has to be decided before capture and it's baked into the image. So if you use certain settings and take a photo, you will get this image, let's say. If this is not what you had in mind, it's too late. You have to delete it and take a new photo. Whereas with FutureCam, you take a photo and then change the shutter speed by dragging this slider. So this is one feature. And then we have a light trail video mode, and the thing on top is the metro. I don't know any other app that has this. They have light trails, static ones, but not in a moving form. You can do light painting, see how the silhouette effect has been created. You can create a time lapse, which is just a speeded up video. You can capture a burst at 30 frames a second, whereas the Apple camera app can capture it at only 10 frames a second. We have a better zoom. So on the left, you have the iPhone, and this is what it looks like. On the right, you have FutureCam. See that it is clearer. And this is shot from the 7th floor. So you can imagine the amount of zoom. We have a night mode. This is iPhone camera app. This is our app. Notice the contrast from the jet and the stars. Here's one, and here's one. I think there are even two dim ones here. And the violet curtains, none of which you can see on the iPhone. There's more detail. See how the edge of the building looks like it's damaged or dissolving into the sky. We have a crowd removal feature. So imagine this guy in blue is your friend and you're photographing him in front of some public place like a monument or something. Because it's a public place, you have people coming in the way. There's me here in the yellow, there's another guy in the background in the gray shirt, and so on. Now, FutureCam detects and removes these people. So you just have your friend. So these are the features in this app, and there are more. Now, when I started this startup, I had no idea how to do any of this. Didn't have a background in image processing, whether an academic background or a professional background. I hadn't done research ever, and this was like an R&D based startup. I had never done deep tech. This was a soft real-time project. So the app processes 1 gigabyte of data every second on a smartphone, not the server. I had no idea how to build things with that level of performance when I started this startup. All these I learned on the job. And this is what I mean by asking a hard question. Because you get more signal that way about the candidate than asking an easy question. You also learn about their attitude. If they give up, it's a red flag. If they're defensive, it's a red flag. One guy told me 4 times that I didn't work in image processing, even though I reassured him that I deliberately asked him that question in an area he hasn't worked in. So, this kind of defensive attitude is very bad. The ideal person will be excited. This is a hard challenge. Let's discuss it. So, if someone from NASA interviewed me and they asked about communication with Mars, I would say this is an awesome thing to brainstorm. That I would be excited. I would look forward to the conversation and to learning something. I wouldn't be defensive, oh no, I may come across as not knowing everything. So that is the attitude thing. The other thing is, do they think just within the boundaries of the tech they have used? For example, one front-end engineer told me we should use React. But this is a mobile app, you should use React Native. He couldn't even think about that much. And he kept thinking just in terms of the UI, not the core algorithms, because he's more familiar with the UI. So you need to be able to identify the hard parts of the problem, the core parts, not what you are familiar with. If someone asks you how to design a metro, you don't talk about the lifts in the metro station, even though you may be an elevator engineer, right? So these kind of attitude related things you come up, you can identify. And if there are red flags, you can either reject or decide what to do, right? And some of these red flags are also associated with lower growth potential. A person who gives up or is defensive or can't think beyond the tech they've used in the past, right? Like I'm a front end engineer, so I'll think only from a front end point of view. Right? These are all signs. And also, do they consider various aspects of a decision? So, for example, I ask them which framework they will use. Will it be React Native, Flutter, Native iOS, etc. And good people consider multiple aspects, weigh them, and then make a decision. Bad people, they'll just think of one aspect and they'll immediately say it. One bad answer is I'll use React Native. Why? Because that's what I know. Another bad example is to consider just one aspect of a decision. I'll use Flutter. Why? Because it works on both iOS and Android. That is true, that is a valid point, but there are other points also. So you should be able to make a holistic decision, especially if you have a lot of experience. You should cover different aspects like challenges, like what are the main challenges in this project, feasibility, estimation, time estimation, just to a very rough level. Will it take a month, a quarter, a year, multiple years? Not like exactly 7.5 months. You can discuss UX, performance. Whom would you hire if he's a lead? How would you collaborate between the different stakeholders in the project? For example, if you're going to hire an image processing engineer, how are you going to collaborate with him? What will be his area of responsibility and so on? So you should explore all of these ideas, but first ask a general question. I start by asking what are the challenges? And then I expect the candidate to talk about different types of challenges such as UX, performance, battery, feasibility, etc. That would be a strong candidate. And if he doesn't, then I ask about each of these one by one. And I write down all these questions ahead of time. And I do it collaboratively. I tell him he can ask me any questions he wants, or he can Google, right? It's not like a typical interview where I ask the questions and he's supposed to answer them. Because one of the skills I'm looking for is, can he collaborate with someone to solve a problem? Not necessarily knowing everything, because very rarely do we know everything needed. And even if we do in this project, in the next project, we may not know everything that is needed to solve the problem. So that's just one part of it, right? The other part of it is, can you collaborate with others? In fact, I would be more impressed with someone who doesn't know something and can figure it out either by himself or Googling or discussing with me than someone who knows. Right? Because I know the guy who didn't know but figured out will be able to figure out the next challenge that comes his way. Time management is a critical thing in any interview. You want to keep the conversation moving and cover all these areas, but don't rush the candidate. Some people do that, which makes for a bad experience for the candidate. Don't show impatience. Don't say, okay, tell me what is this, what is this, what is this. Give him plenty of time. So I tell people you can take as much time as you want to answer. Because I would rather someone takes few moments and gives me a good answer than immediately blurts out a wrong answer, assuming that they have to answer quickly. I attended an interview with Microsoft incidentally, where the interviewer, I was being interviewed. The interviewer was trying to put pressure on me because he had a list of topics he wanted to cover in 45 minutes or whatever it may be. That is not good. I mean, that's his problem. But if I'm able to uh, answer and think at a certain pace and he hurries me up, I'm not going to be able to answer quicker than I can. So don't put pressure, don't show irritation, impatience, any of these negative things. If it is getting bogged down in one area, just say, let's move on to the next area. That will be, that won't put pressure on the candidate, but it will keep the interview moving forward. And if he doesn't answer a question, give him a hint. If he doesn't answer it still, give him a more direct hint. If he doesn't answer it even then, give away the answer and ask, why is this the case? So in this case of, would you use React Native? If someone said, yeah, I would use it because um, it works on both iPhone and Android, which is not the right answer or the complete answer, I'll just remain silent for 5 seconds to see if he's going to continue thinking about other aspects. If not, I'll ask him, okay, are there any other aspects to consider in this decision? And I expect him to point out that native apps have the highest performance, which is required for such a project. But I don't say that. I just ask, are there any other factors that would be relevant in this conversation? See if he can talk about performance. So that is a hint. If he can't take the hint, then I'll say, what about performance? Give him a more direct hint. And if he says something like, I don't know, it's fine, or something vague like that, then I will say, actually, for this project, React Native or Flutter would not be the right choice. Building a native iOS app would be the right choice. Can you tell me why? So here I've given away the answer and asked him to at least tell me why. So, give hints more and more. And ask the same question to dozens of people. So you have a good sense of who is bad, who is average, who is good, and who is excellent. And this goes for all interview questions, not just design questions. Ask the same question to dozens and dozens of people. The other advantage of doing this is that if there is a confusion in the way the question is formed, somebody will ask for clarification and you go and update your question so that the next people will not have this problem. And which is why you need to write it down. If you just remember it, you won't get all these details right. Anyway, I hope you consider this useful. If you'd like me to help your team in hiring great people, I have linked my consulting website in the description. Thank you.